to keep reminding you, we want to get as many questions and answers in as possible. You are listening to the Commonwealth Club of California radio program and our panel members who are talking to us about Golden Gate Park. We will now go forward with our questions that have come from our audience, and Mr. Chappell will be asking those questions for you.
Okay, we have many questions, and some of them are touching on the same point, so I will use my prerogative to kind of mix and match and generalize some of these questions. But I want to start with you, Mark Buell. There are a number of questions about the financial structure of the park and Rec and Park, and going forward 10 years in the future, you know, what do you want to see the financial institutional structure of the park look like, and what is that going to mean for us as users of the park?
That's a great question, and I thank you for it. Basically, the parks are funded from three sources. There's bond money, and there's revenue generated, and there's general fund money, and it's about a third. And the general fund money is in the range of $30 to $35 million. And what I would like to see is a tax structure which takes it out of the general fund, which makes it less subject to the political whims of trying to meet budget requirements. I'd rather see parcel tax or special assessment, and I think that would be a recognition of the value we place on parks, because we historically get down the totem pole after fire and police and muni and health. And those are the places that people squawk the most if you do the cuts, and so Rec and Park gets the brunt of it. I think there are ways, and we have a task force, in fact, that Spur has been heading up for the last 3 months that's talking about this very issue, and there's probably 35 or 40 citizens on it that know lots about the different ways to do this, and we hope to have some recommendations in the next 6 weeks.
Thank you. There's another omnibus question that I'm going to take my prerogative to answer by quoting from the Golden Gate Park master plan, and has been suggested, it is a document very much worth reading. And the question is, does the Golden Gate Park 1998 master plan address the issues raised by the current controversial projects? And the answer is yes. And let me quote from the plan. It says, balancing the oft-conflicting objectives of improving conditions for wildlife and encouraging public use of the park will continue to be a challenge. The park's designers, however, made the challenge less formidable by dividing the park into two distinct parts, roughly east and west of Strawberry Hill. Preserving the historic naturalistic design of the park, including this division, a principal goal of the master plan, will also preserve habitat value for wildlife. The eastern park is more actively used, while the western part is more naturalistic and densely wooded. Maintaining this distinction goes a long way toward maintaining wildlife habitat in the park. So William Hammond Hall was very prescient, and the park has been designed to meet a wide variety of uses, and we as stewards of the park, that all of us citizens are in the city, should make ourselves very familiar with what the plan says and hold all of us to its strictures. I'm going to ask Mark another question, because this one is just too good not to ask. It says, we often see the bumper sticker, what would Jesus do? Regarding synthetic turf and the lighting of the soccer fields, what would John McLaren do?
Well, he was a Scotsman, I think. I wonder if soccer was in his vocabulary. It's a very tough question. I think the Audubon Society has raised some very good issues. There's a full environmental impact report going on. There isn't a right answer. There is a value judgment about serving the citizens of the city, and I think once we see that environmental impact report, we'll find out whether there are mitigation measures that can satisfy the objective and deal with it then. But I would be fooling you if I said that, there are soccer fans who have a viewpoint, and there are people that want to protect the natural beauty of the area that have a viewpoint. And they're both right, and you've got to figure out how to come down on it.
A question I'll address first to Dr. Hartig, and then other people may want to chip in also. Why hasn't Golden Gate Park been landmarked?
Why hasn't Golden Gate Park been landmarked? Probably people in the audience know better than I do. It's certainly been talked about for a long time. I think part of the post-Union Square controversy has kind of cast its shadow over that. I think it's also been caught up in the changes that Prop J wrought, and sadly, I think it's been caught up in some of the broader and very real concerns, but also some of the hyped up concerns over what a designation is and what a designation isn't. I certainly hope that it is for the reasons I stated, because I think that there's a real powerful potential for a kind of coalesced review of changes to the park that would put certain ones into just easily categories. They conform to the 1998 plan. They will cause no significant environmental effect. Done. But the bigger ones, especially obviously the beach chalet, soccer fields, I think deserve as rich a conversation as we can, including alternatives that are meaningful alternatives under CEQA.
What will landmarking mean? Will this pickle the park?
No, there is no pickling of the park. I'm here to tell you that. Yeah. I mean, if you heard some of the examples I gave across the nation, and if Pro Property Rights Phoenix, my alliteration is, I'm sticking with the P's. If Pro Property Rights Phoenix, which of course I just threw in an F, but can landmark, locally designate 30 parks, I just cannot see any reason why San Francisco, in all its progressive glory, cannot landmark it, especially when I think it provides us an opportunity to take a look at the 98 plan and say, okay, what are the contributing historic features of this design cultural landscape? It's art and science, and I think that of any community that we work with in the 8 western states, San Francisco is fully equipped to do that, and do it proudly, and maybe make it a huge point of pride in the park. Tie it together with fundraising. Kind of make the designation a real meaningful event in the history of the city and the park.
Okay.
I won't natter on. Okay.
Yeah. Kathy, you're a landscape architect, and maybe you can help us with this. And what is the story on state-of-the-art synthetic turf, and how long will it last, and when will it need to be replaced? What kind of maintenance does it take?
I think there are two issues here. First of all, I don't think there's any doubt that synthetic turf does last longer. It can be played on longer during the week and during the year, and it requires somewhat less maintenance, although we've been looking at some of the figures and we believe that there should be more maintenance than Rec and Park has talked about. In particular, some people are worried about MRSA and the turf being kept cleaned off and disinfected and things like that. So although water use might be less than lawn, on the other hand, it is supposed to be rinsed off quite a bit. But our position is not that synthetic turf is better or worse than grass fields in terms of a playing surface exactly. Oh, and the other question is they have to be replaced about every 8 to 10 years. So in San Francisco, we've got, almost 30 acres now of synthetic fields, and in 8 to 10 years, the bill's going to come due on this stuff. If a grass field dies or isn't taken care of, you just go out there and water it and throw out some grass field. But for the synthetic turf, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to replace it, and I've heard $400,000-600,000 depending. The other thing is that we think that if you do the natural grass fields in the park, that yes, they won't last as long as the synthetic turf, but we think with good field construction, the right soil amendment, a better irrigation system. If you look on Google Earth right now, you're going to see the crop circles, which means you have a poor irrigation system, and gopher controls for those cute but pesky little gophers, that the field can last longer. And then we would like to take the money that's being spent on this particular field, which is up to $12 million, we'd like to take $1 million and fix up the field, and we'd like to use that money for artificial turf fields, which we are not opposing in principle in other parts of the city. We'd like to spread it around so we can meet the playing time that Mr. Buell was talking about. I think it would be better to have, instead of a Rolls-Royce of a project, to have a bunch of minivans.
Mm-hmm.
You've practiced that.
I did practice that, yes.
Mark, do we know where the new soccer players are coming from, and how many of these are San Franciscans, and how many are regional leagues, and how many are children who won't be playing at night? And
Well, I didn't bring exact statistics, but we're woefully short of the requested number of fields for the requested number of games. And if you go down to the Marina Green and see during the summertime all the soccer fields for kids that are laid out there, and weather permitting, they operate. So there's really a long-term program to try and meet the demand in a way that best serves the public.
Okay. Mike, do you have some prescriptions for how the park can move forward and also improving wildlife habitat in the long run?
Well, I think that the park would be well served by really trying to come up with a better habitat management plan. I think there's a lot of sort of ad hoc work done right now. And a good example that's been given to me by folks that go into the park a lot is every few years, usually related to some criminal or illicit activity, the park feels the need to clear out brush. And brush is, scrub and shrubs and leaf litter is an important ecological fixture in the park. But people are worried that someone may lurk and hide in there, and there can be legitimate safety concerns about that. So they'll go through and they'll clear it all out, and then a couple of years later they'll go in and plant it all back again. And what it shows is that there hasn't been a real long-term plan on how they want to manage that habitat overall. And I think that they can do that. This goes a little bit to the idea of trying to work in partnership better with people like Jake Sig and folks that really know the park well and know the ecology of the park well. And I think the park would benefit from that immensely. And we've seen some of that in the Natural Areas Program, but we haven't seen that through other aspects of park management. And I think that was, again, something that kind of set us off with the Beach Chalet soccer field, because that was never discussed before. It was just presented that was the way it was going to be, and perhaps we could have, and they only did the EIR after we got a little up in arms about it. So I think working with the community a little better would be the best way to proceed, and rely on the expertise of folks that have been out there for decades.
Yeah, we have a general lack of trust of government that's all through the United States these days.
Very American notion, I think.
Yeah, all through every department in San Francisco. But do we have some ideas here how we can try and rebuild that kind of trust that's so necessary to have in a democracy? And this is a question for any of you.
Well, just let me give a couple examples. I think one of the best ones I've seen in the last couple of years is, and Gloria Koch-Gonzalez deserves credit for this, as well as Josiah Clark, of getting restoration going at the bison paddock of coastal scrub habitat. And coastal scrub habitat has been decimated up and down California with significant effects to the biota that rely on it. And those guys have gotten volunteers out there every month for going on a couple of years, and this year they have breeding white-crowned sparrows out there. And white-crowned sparrow is a very common bird, but that we've been observing in decline for years as they have lost their coastal scrub habitat. So it's a real success story between the park working with private citizens to bring stewards into the land.
You are listening to the Commonwealth Club of California radio program and our panel members who are talking to us about the future, present and future of Golden Gate Park. We have come to that point in our program where we have one final question to be asked. And after that question is asked, we will ask each member of the panel to give us a 1-minute summary. And again, I want to remind you, this is civil discourse.
Kathy, you're dying to say something, and
I hate to take the last question, but I will.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about